Hello and welcome to the Prodigy Student Table. My name is Cyndi. I'm the host of the show. And today I am thrilled to invite Pamela join us. Pamela works at the University of Stirling, and she's here to talk to us about everything visa related. So if you are looking to study in the UK and you're feeling a bit overwhelmed about the visa process, Pamela is here to talk to us about that today. Welcome, Pamela. So happy to have you on the show today.
Thanks, Cyndi, and delighted to be here.
Tell us a little bit about you. Tell us about your school and what you do at the University of Stirling.
Yeah, great. So my name is Pamela. I head up the international student recruitment team here at the University of Stirling. So my team is based all around the world, here in Stirling and in countries such as India and Nigeria and Pakistan and China. And we support students who want to come and study in the UK, specifically come and study with us here in Stirling, which is based in the heart of Scotland. So we are right in the middle of Scotland. So about 1 hour between Glasgow and then 1 hour to Edinburgh on the other side. And yeah, delighted to welcome students from around the world, many of whom come to us with finance from Prodigy, which has been great to help them with that as well. Do you want to talk a little bit more about the university in general?
Yes, please. That was going to be my next question. If you could just tell us a little bit about University of Stirling, what makes your university special?
Absolutely. So Stirling's quite a modern university by Scottish standards. We've been around since the 1960s, and we're really lucky here in Stirling to have one of the most beautiful campuses in the world. And that's not just me saying that, that's actually been voted for by our international students. So we've got one of the most highly ranked campus environments in the world, according to international students. So we are a campus university. Everything is here on campus, accommodation, a movie theatre, a cinema, theatres, sports facilities, doctor surgeries, shops, restaurants, everything that you need is here on our campus. And it's, as I said, a really beautiful one. We're also really well known for sports. So we are Scotland's University for Sporting Excellence. We are the home to Olympic athletes. So a huge number of our students are really successful athletes competing, as I said, at that professional level. We had, I think about 20% of the Team GB swimming team was made up of our Stirling students at the Olympics in Paris this year. So if you're interested in sports, interested in health and well-being, we're a really good option.
Great. It sounds like a very well-rounded experience. So, Pamela, let's start with the basics. What are the main visa types international students should know about when coming to stay in the UK?
So there are a number of different visa types. The most popular one and the most that most students will become on is student visa. That used to be called the Tier 4 student visa. So you might still hear that, but it's a student visa. So that's for students who are over 16 and for coming to study on a degree or a pathway programme, perhaps to get into a degree, and they can come and that will cover them for the full duration of their course. The other types, so if they're just coming for a short course under 6 months, they can come on a visitor visa, And if they're coming to do maybe an English language course of between 6 to 11 months, then they would come on a short-term study visa. So there's different restrictions within each of those. As I said, the main visa is the student visa. Students will be allowed to work while they're studying with that as well, so they can do part-time work, depending on the level of study. But for most students, if they're doing a degree, they could work about 20 hours per week whilst on that visa as well. And then when they come to graduate, they can apply for the graduate visa. And we'll touch upon that a little bit more. But there's different types of visas after as well. But the graduate visa or the skilled worker visa is probably the most popular there.
Can you talk to us a little bit about applying for that visa? What does that process look like?
Yeah, absolutely. So for the student visa, I think students can find that quite a daunting process, but actually for the UK, it is quite a straightforward process. So there's two elements to it. One, you need to be sponsored by an institution, and that is not financial sponsorship. That's us sponsoring your visa because your student visa is tied to the institution that you're studying at. So if you apply to Stirling, and we accepted you, we would issue you with a document called a CAS, a Confirmation of Acceptance of Studies. And that is where we tell the Home Office that we are going to sponsor your student visa and your time studying in the UK. So your visa is linked to your course of study with us. On that CAS, we will tell the Home Office how we have assessed you. So that will be how we've assessed your academic ability. So it might be your degree certificate and your transcripts, or your high school certificates. And we'll also say how we've assessed your English language ability. And that again might be to do with a recognised English language test. It might be you don't need to prove that because you're from a majority English speaking country, or it might be we've used an internal method of assessing your English. But how we've done that, we will state on the CAS. And those are the documents you need to have when you apply for your visa. The second part of the visa application is around the finances and the financial kind of requirements. So when you apply for your visa, you need to be able to show that you can pay any tuition fees for your first year of study that you've not yet paid. So if you've paid a deposit, again, we'll list that on the CAS and you won't have to show you still have that money. And you also have to show you have what's called maintenance, and that is the funding required to cover your cost of living in the UK. And you need to show that for the first 9 months of your course. The amount you have to show will depend on where you're studying in the UK. So the UK is obviously Scotland, England, Wales and Northern Ireland, but the maintenance requirement does vary depending on whether you're studying in London, because it tends to have a higher cost of living, or outside of London as well. So that full amount, so for example, if you were studying here in Stirling, the amount that you would have to show is £1,136 per month for up to 9 months. So that would be just over £10,000 you would have to have in your bank account, as well as any outstanding tuition fees. So for example, if our tuition fees were £20,000 and you had paid a £5,000 deposit, you would still have £15,000. So that maintenance plus your fees together is the total amount you have to show in your bank account. There's also some requirements around that in terms of what that bank account looks like. So that money has to be in your bank for a minimum period of time before you apply. So it needs to have been in your bank account for 28 days. And the bank statement you provide needs to also be dated within 31 days of your visa application as well. So it is fairly straightforward, but there's some little intricacies within that you just have to make sure that you cover.
Great. And let's talk about timelines around the CAS. I know that's a very important document for international students to obtain. At which point do they get this CAS?
So students will get the CAS once they are unconditional, so they've met all their academic conditions and they've paid their deposit if required. So for my institution, for students starting in September, we've already started issuing CAS. We start that in May. Some institutions will be a little bit earlier, some might be a bit later, but this is a really key time of year for students who are starting in September. So we've started issuing those as well. We have some students who we would like to issue the CAS to, but they've just not quite met one of those requirements. So we might be waiting for them to pay their deposit, for example, or we're waiting for them to take an English language test and provide proof of that. So you need to work with your university. They'll usually have a portal that you can upload your documents to, and that will allow you to track your process there. But yes, you need to be unconditional and have accepted your offer and met any kind of financial requirements before we can issue that CAS document.
Great. So it sounds like you need to pay that initial deposit in order to obtain the CAS.
Yeah, so every institution will set their own policy around that, but it's fairly standard practice now that universities will ask you to pay a deposit, either to secure your place on the course or to secure your CAS. And that shows a commitment to the university, but it also shows a commitment when you come to apply for your visa. It shows that you've paid that money up front, so you really are committed to going to that institution. And as I said, when it comes to your bank statements, that amount that you've already paid is deducted from the total amount you need to show. So it also reduces the amount you need in your bank account at the time of visa application.
Great. On this timeline topic, When should students then start prepping for their visa application? At which point would you say that only once they have their CAS, should they then start prepping for the visa application? What kind of advice do you have for international students around this?
I would say don't wait until you've got your CAS, because the financial aspect of it is probably the piece that takes the longest, and you have to obviously allow that money to mature. And it also, the longer that money is sitting in your bank account and you can show you've been building that up, the better that is as well. So really you want to start kind of preparing, I would say kind of at least 6 months out, and really start thinking about that process. Because ultimately, once you get your CAS, you should be going and applying straight away. So you want everything in place for that. Now, there's other things that you want to also consider. So a couple of things. So for example, if you're coming to study a course that might be in an area called, or an area around physics, for example, you might have to apply for what's called ATAS, which is the Academic Technology Accreditation Scheme. So that's just some additional checks that the UK government undertake on students who are maybe applying for courses which could be used for non-positive things in the future, shall we say, but more kind of technical courses. Your university will tell you if you need that ATAS approval. So you can apply for that earlier and you want to get that in place. So again, making sure you've got all these documents in place so that when you get your CAS, you're ready to go and apply for your visa as soon as possible is really good advice.
How does the University of Stirling support international students with this visa process?
So we've got a number of different ways. So as I said, I've got a team based around the world and my team here in Stirling who travel regularly. We offer one-to-one catch-ups. We offer webinars to support students through that process. We also offer dedicated immigration webinars, which are run by our in-house immigration team, and they will talk students through the process of applying for the visa. In addition to that, we work with companies called agents who are our official representatives around the world as well. And you can find details of them on our website. Those agents will, in the main, be able to offer free advice to students on how to apply to the visa. And we would obviously recompense them for that support that they give students. Within the UK, we have what's called an agent quality framework. And that's a really important piece of work that universities have been working on to work with our agent partners to make sure they're all properly trained and they can give that really high quality advice. So again, you can look on your university's website. They should have a page explaining to you about agents, what agents do and how they can support you, and also how you can find a fully trained and authorised agent in your local kind of country or city who can help you with that. The visa process isn't overly complicated, but it's always sometimes good to just get somebody else to kind of look over your documents and give you that little bit of extra support and help to make sure you're not maybe just making one silly mistake that could lead to a visa refusal.
Great. It sounds like the University of Stirling does quite a few things to support international students. Pamela, so, the visa, I know you mentioned that the visa process is not very complicated, but it can feel quite overwhelming for someone who's never done this before, who potentially it could be their first time leaving their home country to visit the UK. What is one thing that you wish students knew before they started this process?
So I think one of the things I would say is it is about, actually in general, the UK has quite a high visa success rate in comparison to some of the other major destinations. But I think the main thing I would like them to know is there is that support available. And so do make most of that. Reach out to your university, read the emails we're sending you, because we're sending you them because there's important information in that, and that we can support you through that process. But making sure that you've got everything, and don't take, my friend of my friend told me you could do this, because processes change. So perhaps you had a parent or a family member who came to the UK 10 or 15 years ago. It's a very different process then. So make sure you're checking the UKVI website, because actually there's some really good advice there, and they take you through step by step everything you need at that point as well. So making sure that you're doing your research and checking all those requirements is really important, and not leaving it to the last minute. start that process really early so that you are prepared. Preparation is key to everything.
Great advice. Thank you, Pamela. And talking about kind of the common silly mistakes that students make, what are some of those mistakes? Are there any common mistakes that you see in your experience?
Yeah, I'd say probably some of the biggest ones are around that financial piece and some of the assumptions people make. So, for example, some people will assume, oh, I have an uncle who lives in the UK. I'm going to live with him, so I don't need to show that I have money to pay for my accommodation. Well, unfortunately, you still do. So the money you show has to either be in your name or in your parent or legal guardian's name. So unless that uncle is your legal guardian, and you have to prove that with court documents, you can't use his bank statements in the UK to prove that you will have the finances available to you. So there's some kind of assumptions, and it might go against common sense of what we know that your uncle will support you, but unfortunately those are the visa rules that you have to follow. I think also thinking about things like using loans and such as well. Obviously, Prodigy is recognised by UKVI, and that's one of the reasons we at Stirling work with you. But again, making sure that you are using any other type of financing, which is not money sitting in your account for a period of time. There's a lot of rules around exactly what type of financing you can use. And so again, we're seeing more and more people asking about cryptocurrency and things, for example. So just making sure that you are checking that any of loan documentation that you're submitting meets those requirements as well. Again, the guidance is all on the UKVI website, and your university will also help you. So for example, we actually do finance checks for most of our students. So we'll check the documentation that you're planning to submit before we issue a CAS to make sure that we think you meet those requirements.
Great insights. Thank you, Pamela. And just to our listeners, from Prodigy Finance perspective, firstly, we fund a number of schools in the UK where we cover tuition and living expenses. And then we also provide you with an official loan confirmation letter that is accepted by UK VI officers. We have funded many students to study in the UK who has used our loan confirmation letters to successfully obtain their visa.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've welcomed students to Stirling with the Prodigy loan letter as well.
Thank you, Pamela. So, Pamela, there's a lot of buzz around the graduate route. How does it actually work and who qualifies?
So yes, there is a huge amount of buzz around the graduate route. And what I would say is, again, look at what the rules are at the time that you apply. So currently, the graduate route allows graduates from UK universities across the whole of the UK to apply for this visa once they complete their studies. That allows them to currently stay in the UK for up to 3 years, depending on the course of study. If they're doing a PhD, currently 2 years for master's qualifications. You have to be in the UK when you apply for the graduate route. So it's usually applied for directly after you finish your course. You don't have to wait until you've actually officially graduated. We as institutions will tell UK Visas and Immigration when you've successfully completed your course. And the other benefit of it is that you don't need a job offer. There's no minimum salary threshold currently around that visa. So what the visa is designed to do is give you time to go out and look for jobs and work with your university career services around that. It's different from worker visas or skilled worker visas where you've got to have a specific job and you're tied in. So it gives you that flexibility. It means, for example, if you've studied here in Stirling, you don't have to stay in Stirling, although there's lots of opportunities here. You could go to London or Manchester or Glasgow and look for job opportunities there as well. So it gives you that real flexibility, which is great. And it also means that when an employer wants to take you on, they don't have to sponsor you. So unlike the student visa, your graduate visa is not tied to a specific sponsor. It is there for that period of time, and you can kind of move quite flexibly around that.
Wow, that sounds like a big advantage for international students. The UK is so much more accommodating for international students and really kind of helps international students integrate into the country after they've graduated.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I think a really key thing, the advice I would give to any students is a key piece of that puzzle is working with your career service within the university. And the advice I would give is start working with them from the minute you start at university, because they can help you with part-time jobs, internships, but also that graduate support. And in fact, we've got a really good case example here of we had one of our Nigerian students who actually managed to secure an internship with our career service before she even arrived in Stirling. She was really proactive. So, and that's a fantastic example. We're doing quite a lot around this because we know it's a big, important area for students. So again, we offer our students a lifelong access to our career service, which is great. And we also are working really closely with the Scottish Government, who have launched what's called the Migration Advisory Service. And that's a free service that international students in Scotland can access. And it will give you additional advice and support on applying for that graduate visa. But also, we're also through that working with employers in Scotland to promote the graduate visa opportunities and the fantastic international students that we have who come and study with us and can move on to that visa and work with them as well.
What a great resource. Thank you so much for sharing that. So, Pamela, you've already given us such beautiful advice already. But for someone who is dreaming of studying in the UK, and it will be their first time leaving their home country, what advice do you have for a student like that? Particularly around adapting to this new culture.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, I think it comes to that research piece and really thinking about the type of environment they want to be in. The UK offers a fantastic variety of different types of universities, city-based universities, campus-based universities like us here at Stirling. And I think it's also really good to think about reaching out and finding out about universities from students who have done that and have been through that experience. So again, follow some of the universities you're interested in on social media, look up their YouTube sites and things. And what you'll find is that actually we have a lot of our students who are creating content and talking about their experience. And we also, again, will host webinars and sessions where you can talk to some of our current students and our recent alumni, because I think that peer voice is so important. It's easy for me to say, come to Stirling and it's great. I've lived in Scotland my whole life. I've never done that journey. And I think it's an incredibly brave thing to do. But to be able to talk to somebody who's maybe come from the same city or the same country as you, and actually get that experience, and think about that community. And we have that here, and lots of UK universities have that, is a fantastic student community. We are really proud in the UK of being internationally focused global universities. So you will come and you will study alongside people with funny Scottish accents like mine, but also from all around the world. And our international student community is really welcoming because they've been there, they've done it, so they want to give that support to students. So yeah, I think that research piece is really important. Look at the university websites, but follow them on social and come along to all the opportunities we give you to engage and to meet some of our students and our alumni and our staff who can help you.
Great, Pamela. And then just in recapping, could you give us a little run through of the checklists and the requirements for an international student to successfully be admitted into, say, the University of Stirling, and then to also successfully obtain their visa?
Yeah, so starting at the very start, applying to university, you want to make sure you have the right academic entry criteria, the right English language criteria, and that you're selecting the right course. We'll look at your personal statements and such to see what your motivation is. If you are successful, and again, that key message is engage with the comms we're sending, keep up to date, and it seems like a lot at times, but we are sending you that important information, then start thinking and planning about your visa process as early as possible. We really want students to be here as early as possible for the start of term, because that sets you up for success and makes you have the best possible experience. So making sure you've got all that paperwork. So think about your fees and your funding and making sure you've got the requirements there. Whether you've got savings or whether you're applying for a loan, make sure you start that process early. Think about all the other requirements that you'll need. So as I said, things like TB testing, task certificates if you need them. That will be a minority, but you may need that. So you want to get all the paperwork in place. And start thinking about things like your accommodation and where you're going to live, and make sure you've got that in place, and reaching out to those other students. It's also important, I think, to note one of the things we've not touched upon, but it comes into that visa finance process, is the immigration health surcharge, and think about the costs of the actual visa application. So you have a visa application fee, and then you pay the immigration health surcharge. Now, that's mandatory. You'll pay it at the point of application of visa. What that does is that gives you access to the National Health Service in the UK for the full duration of your course. If you're coming for a 1-year course, you'll have to pay that health surcharge for 1 year. If you're coming for a 4-year course, you'll have to pay that full 4 years at the start as well. But that is free access to doctor's surgeries. And we have a doctor's surgery on campus, free emergency healthcare. In Scotland, you don't pay prescription charges for your medicine either. So it does cover you. It means you don't have to take out private health insurance, which is a big saving for some as well. And we're lucky to have a great national health service here in the UK. So one of the benefits, but again, something to also plan for, is the actual cost of your application in the first instance as well.
Well, there you have it, folks. A clear checklist on how to successfully obtain your visa in the UK. As mentioned, Prodigy Finance supports a number of schools in the UK, and we also issue you with an official loan confirmation letter that can be used to successfully obtain your visa. Pamela, thank you so much for sharing all your expertise and your knowledge and wisdom with us today. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me.
If you found this episode useful, please feel free to share it with someone who might also find it useful. So thank you so much for joining us today.